Yay. Am I good or what? Okay, good. So here we are, Andrew Boone. Love you. We're so glad
This is
you're
Andrew
here.
Boone.
Okay, so let me pose the question, Andrew. What are the problems, the climate crisis problems you see that will come to San Jose, that you are concerned about coming to San Jose? And what are the things that the city of San Jose can do to be in front of the crises that we're potentially going to have, that the science says is coming to San Jose, that you're concerned about? What do you think the city of San Jose needs to do to get in front of it collectively and individually to help, to, like my husband says, save the people? We need to save the people. And they're saying now we have 4 to 5 years of science, and the UK, David King, he says we have 4 to 5 years to save humanity. Okay, so what do you say, Andrew Boone?
Well, the threats are drought and flood, and even wildfires. Drought, I actually am not sure, according to the science, which is the most dire threat, but we live in a region that even before human-induced climate change had mega droughts, droughts that lasted decades. So that's a huge threat for the livability of San Jose and the Bay Area. This is a dry region that we have more people living in than can be sustained in a mega drought or a mega flood. In 1863, I think it was 63 or 62, there was a flood that flooded the entire Central Valley. That can happen again, and the probability of it is higher now. San Jose has such a great potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, especially through reducing car driving. That's the number one, what do they call it? Sector source. They break up the sources of greenhouse gas emissions into different sectors, and that's like over 50%. And there's nothing else that even comes close to transportation. And among transportation is cars. The airplanes are a smaller component, than a much smaller, like 5% of the total. So what the city can do, and it isn't really that difficult. We have so little public transportation in San Jose. We have such a poor network of streets for walking and bicycling that with really small investments, we can open up the city to travel through those modes of transportation that are not available to most people right now. Like for most people, public transit is ineffective. The buses don't come very often, and the network is not very robust. VTA has been cutting bus service for 2 or 3 decades now, gradually. It's the death by 1,000 cuts. So investing in transit, especially bus service, and redesigning streets to be safe for walking and bicycling, those can contribute a huge reduction of greenhouse gases. And they would also, there's so many other benefits. It should be done even regardless of climate change. The mobility benefits. Right now, people are trapped in the part of the city they live in without a car. And that's why we have such high emissions, because we don't give residents the choice to use transit, bicycling, walking to get around. For renewable energy too, there's potential there. Solar panels can be installed basically on the top of any building, and that's something that the city can do. The city can have a program for greater adoption of solar energy, and individuals can do. And the great thing now is that it's a lot more affordable than it ever used to be. I don't know, the cost is like a quarter of what it was 10 years ago. The prices for solar panels have really dropped to the point where most people can save money. If you own a house, you can save money by installing solar panels. So there are things we can do individually. Of course, the city has to be the driver. The city has to provide information for people. The city has to provide incentives for people to do those things. And then finally, I would say, like, the city is itself can be natural itself. Like, I mean, with more plants growing in it. And more plants means more trees. You know, there are neighboring cities with a lot more dense urban forest, and that reduces energy use, and also growing food. So we use a lot of energy by importing our food from thousands of miles away, sometimes from South America. This is destructive for a lot of reasons, but it produces a lot of greenhouse gases. But local food production, creation of an urban forest, local renewable energy production, and especially the reduction in car use by expanding alternatives.
Mhm. Expanding alternatives.
To driving
wanna-
cars.
You want to expand on how do you think the alternatives should go forward? What alternatives do you want to see in our city?
Well, there's the way we talk about it is usually that there's three types of alternatives: walking, biking, and transit. But
Mhm.
really more things have been invented recently that didn't used to exist, like electric scooters.
Mhm.
Skating is a lot more popular, roller skating. And I'm serious, like people can roller skate and get around that way, but
Mhm.
our streets don't support doing it. There's no place to do it
Mhm.
safely, just like there's no place to ride a bicycle or walk safely. If we're
Mhm.
killing, or 50 to 60 people are getting killed
Mhm.
in car crashes per year, it's not a safe transportation system. And the choices that people make, because it isn't safe, is to protect ourselves inside of a car.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
it really is not such a difficult task as the city council makes it out to be. It is not this huge decades long project. In a couple of years, we could redesign streets that would be safe for everyone to use using any mode of transportation. It's just that the city council refuses to do that. The city wants to maintain very wide streets for huge volumes of cars, something that itself is not sustainable. Like I was at a committee meeting recently talking about the intersection of Monterey and Kirtner.
Mhm.
And they were trying to figure out what to do to prevent people who are walking across the street from getting killed by drivers who are running the red lights. But they
Mhm.
don't understand, in my opinion, that it's the width of the street itself that
Mhm.
creates the whole safety problem.
Mhm.
If they refuse to narrow the streets in any
Mhm.
way, meaning, fewer lanes in the streets, we are always going to be stuck in this car heavy society.
Mhm.
People can't choose modes of transportation that have a low impact on the environment if it's dangerous.
Mhm.
It's dangerous to do so. That should be absolutely our first priority, is what they call complete streets that are
Mhm.
safe for everyone in all modes of transportation,
Right.
especially in East San Jose and South San Jose.
Mhm.
This is where it has the biggest impacts. It's very difficult to get from those parts of the city to downtown,
Mhm.
where there there are a lot of jobs downtown, and then you have access to the rest of the region through regional transit
Mhm.
from downtown, only from downtown.
Mhm.
We have to make it, we need, like, you know, half the space allocated to walking and biking, something like that. It can't be this 90% of the space allocated to cars driving on our major streets. And
Mhm.
that and it isn't going to affect anybody's life negatively when you reallocate, say, half the street from, say, Santa Clara Street. I mean, that
Mhm.
one, top priority, goes all the way through from downtown, actually from west of downtown through downtown to East San Jose on a single street. If half of that space, instead of being for car traffic, was for bicycling and walking, then a lot of people wouldn't be driving anymore. They would use that space that is now for walking and bicycling, and the car volumes would drop. That's exactly what we need to happen. The city has written, the city writes down in plans, like, saying that they want to do these things, but only tiny steps are ever taken forward. The urban villages concept that I think was first written into the general plan in the, what year is it now? 2009, the plan adopted 2009. That's a good concept. That's the idea of creating like little downtowns all over the city, like complete neighborhoods, so that people can, you know, you have a place to buy your food close to you. You have a place to get all of the services you need close to you. But those urban villages never were built. They need to be built at higher densities with taller buildings closer together. So you can have communities where driving isn't necessary. That's in general what San Jose needs to pursue. Communities where driving is less necessary. You know, self-sufficiency on smaller scales.
Mhm. Right, yeah, that's very true. Good, yeah, I agree. Self-sufficiency on smaller scale. And
So,
one thing I've been, yeah, go ahead, what?
so you could
Go
have,
ahead.
like, there's no dense urban area outside of the downtown, any part of the
Mm,
city. There's no really walkable. Downtown
right.
is really the only place where you could say, you know, you could walk to get to lots of destinations. It's miserable to do so and unsafe, but at least things aren't super far away.
Yeah,
Um,
well, it's just, yeah, something Blair brought up was really, I was interviewing him and he was mentioning something, it was like, oh, he was talking about resiliency. You know, he always talks about earthquake preparedness. And he was saying how if we don't do this now, which is to get our renewables, what the city is planning is when there's an emergency, it's going to go back to fossil fuels. Because he goes to all the meetings and he says that's their plan. That's the plan. The fossil fuels are going to help us get through that emergency. So what Blair was saying is that we really have to use our best practices now, because if we don't install the solar, then when we have these emergencies that are on our, you know, in our radar, the science says it's coming, then there's earthquakes. We know those are coming. We're on fault lines, you know, and the science says there's going to be catastrophes. That if we don't do that now, which is build our solar, then when we have these emergencies, we're going to start using more fossil fuels. And it's what's happening right now. It's happening. They're idling at the ports. And another example is downtown San Jose. They gave this public street to the restaurants. So it's actually less safe now, Andrew, to ride. There's no safety. There's no bike lane. San Fernando's gone. They gave it to restaurants. Adobe's building. They cut off everything. You know, San Fernando used to be the bike lane, and they said, no, now we had an emergency. We're going to let the businesses have our street. And then I have to go into the, Sharrow area or share the road. And then Santa Clara is terrible. They never prepared for that. So, these are the things we're not preparing for emergencies.
the cities does a good job of writing down on paper what are good ideas to do, but then doesn't do those things. The plans that have already been adopted are actually pretty proactive and are ahead of other cities. Like in 2016, San Jose adopted a Vision Zero plan. That means that it has a goal to reduce the number of fatal car crashes to zero. And the number of fatal car crashes hasn't been reduced at all, but the plan was adopted. Those plans are good. They need to be followed. That's the good part. We have written this all down, what to do. We just aren't doing it. The Department of Transportation is not doesn't agree with executing its own plans.
Ooh, exactly. And this is what I've come up against, that, I'm dealing with this unsafe area on Coleman. And I contacted all the powers that be, and I'm yelling and screaming because my husband is not feeling safe when he goes to Home Depot with his 8-foot cart, and he's able to take 200 pounds of wood home, and plywood even he has. So he's really together. And he says he doesn't feel safe because it has a bike lane over from PayPal Park. It goes over the freeway with the bike lane. Then you have heading to Taylor, no bike lane, like as if we disappear. And then after Taylor, it starts again. And so I told him, and John Brazil writes me back. Thank God I got something back. That's amazing, right? And then he says, "Oh yeah, we know about that area. It's already it's been in many plans. And when we repave that road, we might do it if we have a little bake sale that's going to support it." And these have been problems that we've talked about before. We've noticed this. I don't know if you've noticed it, that they have to have bake sales and grant writing to get any money to fix the bike lanes, and
Well,
create the bike
that
lanes. And maybe that's not true, but this is how it sounds. And then it's when it's going to be repaved. I have to go look on a list. And the thing is, if you have Vision Zero with potholes, 2 hours to fix a pothole. That's the cars. 2 hours to fix the potholes. And they do it, but they won't do anything for the bikes. And then we say we have Vision Zero. That's BS.
yeah, and you alluded to another problem, funding. This is one of the reasons why problems in general don't get fixed in San Jose, because of the lack of funding. The mayor repeatedly refers to San Jose as, what does he called it, the most thinly staffed major city in the country. Well, that's his fault. Like that's his decision to not raise revenues to an appropriate level. That policy,
corporations,
that needs to change. If we're going to always try to run the city with the lowest possible budget, it makes everything we want to do much more difficult. I think that downtown having completely car-free streets would be a major step forward and a major improvement in quality of life. San Pedro Square being the only one, and it being only for the purpose of increasing, as you said, the tables for restaurants, is totally inadequate. There is downtown a car-free area, and it is in my opinion, the best part of downtown to visit, the most pleasant part to walk and bike. That's San Jose State University. And San Carlos Street used to cross through it as a street with cars on it. They closed it to cars so that it could be part of the campus, so that it would be safe and inviting place to learn, right?
It's very nice.
So,
It's very nice. Yes.
so
It's a piazza. It's very much a car-free piazza, and that's very nice, right? Yeah.
That just needs to be expanded.
Right.
All European major cities, every single one, have car-free downtown streets, and not just random streets somewhere. It's a network of connected streets, so that there is part of the city where you can get everywhere you need to go without the danger of cars. We don't have to have car traffic on every single street. This is and this is very bad for business. I read an article just the other day about how much the downtown businesses are still struggling even after we're sort of coming out of the pandemic, but Santana Row has been thriving the whole time. Well, why has Santana Row been thriving the whole time? Because you can walk there and it's nice. We need to redesign downtown, especially to be a pedestrian first area, a pedestrian only area. We have no pedestrian only zones except for San Jose State University. There's a great opportunity to do this with the development of the giant Google campus that's someday going to be built around the Diraton Caltrain station, because that could be a car-free area. It would be in the interest of Google, because what do I mean by car-free?
Like a true campus like San Jose
Campus.
State.
Right. Like any college, you don't have any streets crossing the campus. You have streets coming to it.
So we can make it it can extend it from downtown Santa Clara, San Fernando, maybe even San Carlos, and I think also San Salvador. I'm not sure how that goes, but that's where the farmers market is, and it just becomes a block that includes the Google. And the thing is, with the SAP Center, we have been fighting with them because they're saying they need 5,000 car spaces or they're going to leave. Good, go, please.
Good riddance.
Right.
That would be a major improvement if the stadium were to somehow not be there anymore.
Right, and we should make that into an eco village. You've said that about, I think somebody has mentioned that. I think you mentioned that once to me. Do you think so? That is such an
Yes,
ugly building. It's so ugly and
well, the
what?
the stadium itself is actually not the problem, it's the cars.
But who wants to
That,
be in a stadium? I'm not going to go inside a stadium. I'm not going in any buildings, and a lot of people don't want to go in. And so, and now we're saying you have to wear a mask, blah, blah, blah. But, what were you going to say about the stadium? Are you talking about the SAP Center?
well, there's no reason that it needs to have a giant surface parking lot around it.
Right.
We're building on our other giant surface parking lots wisely. Google's gonna someday have a bunch of office and apartment buildings instead of empty parking lots. Most of the
Well,
time, empty
Kat
parking
says,
lots.
as a scientist, he says all our open parking lots should become food production because they're ready to go. And now the science is saying we have 4 to 5 years to save humanity. Well, and like Kat will say, we have no natural habitat. We have where's our food production? We have to take these lands and it even could be what you call, what is that called? When cities take land, it's a, we know what I'm saying? When they take land for the health of the well-being of the community,
Eminent
there's a name
domain.
for that. Yeah, eminent domain, right? Eminent domain. To take the parking lots, turn them back into the Valley of Heart's Delight because they're the easiest things to go because you don't have to demolish anything. We only have 4 to 5 years to save humanity is what David King from the UK, he's the scientist from Extinction Rebellion. I got that. I just got it from Roger Hallam. Roger Hallam from Extinction Rebellion, right? You know who I'm talking about? Roger Hallam? Do you know Extinction Rebellion, Andrew? What?
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's
the
what he
the
said.
British
And
group.
that was what he posted. What?
You mean the British group?
Yeah. Extinction Rebellion. Yes.
Hmm.
And they're
Hmm.
saying that the science is his name is David King, and he's a UK advisor science. He says we have 4 to 5 years to save humanity. That's what he said.
In San Jose, it's really much easier than the city wants us to think.
Right, right.
We should have downtown pedestrian malls. We already have streets that are almost pedestrian. Actually, there is a pedestrian mall.
Santana
But
Row.
no,
Oh,
no, no, downtown.
what? Where?
San
It's called yeah, Paseo de San Antonio. It's beautiful.
Exactly,
Paseo de San
exactly.
Antonio.
So that runs east-west. It connects to San Jose State University. And then north-south, First and Second Streets, the transit malls, there's only one lane for car traffic there. Those can be pedestrian-only streets.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
there
Oh,
can
that'd be
be
beautiful.
there can be
That'd be
a
beautiful.
street connecting San Jose State University to the Diridon Caltrain station that doesn't have cars on it. We got to
Mhm,
start designating some of our streets to be car-free streets.
mhm.
We're taking tiny baby steps towards that all over the Bay Area, actually. Just today, I was in San Francisco on a bike tour of their slow streets. Now,
Mhm,
Oakland first called this slow streets when the
mhm.
pandemic
Right.
first
Right.
hit.
I loved it. I loved it.
They
Yeah.
they designated streets that you can't drive in unless you live there. So no through
Yeah.
traffic.
Right. Right.
And they were kind of these disconnected
Yeah, I wanted
short
those in San Jose. I
blocks.
tried to get those. Yeah,
They
home
didn't
zones,
do
they
any.
call it. None.
They
I
didn't.
try to get it for Deb Davis saying, in terms of our COVID that, and now there are places in San Jose because of her that the businesses have taken over the sidewalks, taken over the streets. And it's like less safe. Now there's no place for us. We have to be close to the diners who are eating and we have to be in the street. There's no there. I mean, they've basically taken the public space. Deb Davis has taken the public space and given it to the businesses to make money, to have restaurants. And now we don't have safe place. It's gotten worse in San Jose because of it, because of COVID, because of what they did. All about businesses. And I was
Yeah.
jealous of Oakland and hearing about that, how they closed off street. They didn't do any of that here. Nothing.
Well, in San Francisco, it's even further along because I didn't know that their slow streets they have these more permanent barriers in front of them. In
Oh,
Oakland,
nice.
they're just these cheap construction foldable, you could just drive over it if you wanted to. In San Francisco, they put like signs, you know, posts into the ground.
It
It's a
say what?
barrier.
It says what? No
It says
cars?
slow, it says slow
Oh,
streets.
I love it.
It's designated that. You can bike
Is
through
it
it,
dead
no
end or
problem.
do you have to drive at 20? What, I mean, what does that mean, slow streets?
It, well, it means that you can't drive into it
Oh,
from,
then it's really a
it's
dead end. There's no cars. There's no
the
cars.
barrier, yeah. Well,
It's
but
a
I didn't
barrier. Then why do they
understand.
call it slow? Why
It's
don't they say
only a
no?
barrier. It's slow because um now people are walking, biking in the street because there's very much less car traffic on those blocks.
Oh,
They
I see.
only,
So it's a slow street, but it's really not saying the evil word, no cars. They don't want to say that. They say slow. I mean, is it understandable? They put blockades so you can't get through the cars, basically, right?
no, you can still, but not
Oh,
through traffic. If you live
oh,
there, these are residential streets.
oh,
If you live
I
there,
see.
you could drive in and out.
How do they control it though? Is there like you have to
The
have a
barriers
pass
are
or?
only on half of the street, like on the
Right,
way in,
right,
like so that
right.
the way you can only get into that section from one
I
end and
see.
you
You
can only
can't get
go
out.
out of it the
Right.
other end.
Yeah, right. That's what we want on Sheely, right in our neighborhood, I've been talking about, Sheely, the corner where the hotel is
Mm.
proposed. I wanted that to be a slow street. I wanted it to be what we call, Marshall talked to us once, it's called home zones. And where you have a sign that says no through traffic, on both sides, and then only the people that come in. And what I've been thinking about is like, how do we get our neighbors to give up their cars? Why can't we try to create villages where these people give up their cars? We become like a little village, and we don't need our cars. I was just thinking, I know that they allow the cars to come in, but the ideal thing is we all give up our cars. Why not?
Well,
We don't need them.
a step towards that would be when there's a big development on a big piece of land, like around the Berryessa BART station. There's a huge parking lot, right? And then what's the shopping center near Campbell that's going to be rebuilt?
Oh,
I forgot the name.
well, Campbell's a
Camden,
beautiful.
Camden.
Well, there is that
No.
Camden. Yeah, that we were down there when, yes, it's called the Camden. There's a name for it. Camden and Union. It's over there, Camden and
Hmm.
Union, right?
So it's
Remember?
a big surface parking lot, right? Well,
Right.
the current concept for building both of those areas is
What's
just
both?
this
Wait, which both? You said Camden and Union and where else?
Berryessa, the
Oh,
Berryessa, what's
Berryessa
the,
train station? I don't know that. Okay.
it's the flea market is there now,
Okay. Yeah,
but
okay,
they're
yeah,
gonna
I've been
put
following it.
buildings on it. The problem is they're gonna put streets on it that have cars on every single street. But
And the
there's no,
Camden Union too, that's the Camden
right.
Union plan too? Okay, you've been following Camden Union, that development?
Well, I looked at the conceptual
Okay.
drawing for it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah.
There, if you have a blank slate, you could build anything, and
Mm.
people will live there,
We'll adapt to it.
especially if it's a car-free area. People
Mm.
don't, people don't, it's the city council misunderstands like the relationship between people and cars. People only using cars because they have to,
Mm.
especially if you have, okay, you have a big piece of land to build whatever you want on it. And this is true at the Diridon Caltrain station, even more important there. You can design it in such a way that you can drive there, you park at the edge of it in a little parking lot where you pay, and then the rest of it's a car-free area. It's a campus. This is the way all college campuses are, and they're much higher quality spaces to be.
Mm.
We
And
got
we
to
make
start
downtown that
building
way. We
the
make
city that
downtown a
way.
campus. We make downtown like Santana Row, an old European city.
Right.
That's why Santana Row is thriving, because it's a car-free zone. And the little cobblestones, little streets, and let's make it that, make it, just no cars in those areas, right? And I think it would transform it. It would be beautiful.
Yeah, just
Do you
like
think?
San Jose State University and
Right.
hundreds of universities across the
Right.
country demonstrate
Right.
this. Actually, Stanford
Right.
University
Mm.
demonstrates this even more because
Oh,
it's much
yes,
bigger.
beautiful.
It's
Yes,
much
yes.
bigger and it's
Right, yes.
um, a bigger
It's
area that
beautiful.
is all
Oh, it's so
pedestrian
beautiful. Yeah.
plazas.
Right, right. And it's very nice. I mean, it could even be better, Stanford. Because I was up there. It could even be better, but it's pretty nice. It's big, and I think downtown San Jose could expand to become one big campus with San Jose State and the Google. So that's what they call it, the downtown. They call it this is the downtown plan, the horrible plan. But this is how you're seeing the plan is car free, and I love it, right?
I would say I say take little steps. We're not gonna eat the whole elephant in one day. We're
Okay.
not building the new San Jose in one day, just like Rome wasn't built in a day.
Okay.
But
Okay.
every month, do
Mm.
something, close a
Right.
block, make it, extend it, take little
Mhm.
steps. And especially
Right.
when we're redeveloping land
Right.
that's empty,
Right.
those need to be primarily pedestrian plazas and
Mhm.
car-free zones.
Right. So would we start with Santa Clara and just start with Santa Clara as our street that we should just make car free?
I don't know about Santa Clara. Maybe. That I heard this, I actually heard somebody else propose it back when at the beginning of the Google Diridon, back when it was proposed
Mhm.
that to be a different street, to be a car-free street connecting Diridon and San Jose State University. It wasn't even my idea. This is not my idea. None of
Mhm.
these are my ideas. This is not Andrew Boone talking. I'm I'm copying what has been successful elsewhere. And what has been
Mhm.
successful is exactly what I just described, to gradually expand a network of car-free streets, starting with what you have. We already have that a few car-free streets in
But look what they did to
downtown.
San Fernando. Then it degraded under emergency, like which they're calling COVID. The emergency is really our climate crisis, not the restaurants being able to serve, food and make money. That's not our emergency. But then they immediately took away the bike lane, so it's not as even as safe. Now we used to have San Fernando. Now we basically don't. They took it, and we don't have Santa Clara, and so it's really not. It's even less safe now. That they've given it to the restaurants. They've taken parts of the street, and it just breaks up the flow of our bike lanes. So I don't see any bikers downtown, only me. Basically, you know what I'm saying, because it's less safe
You know what?
is
I
under this
remember,
emergency,
according to the
quote
to the
unquote emergency, that we have to help the restaurants. Who cares about the people? That's why Vision Zero is BS, because they made it less safe for me downtown.
what they considered an emergency, I remember, and they actually called it this. The mayor called, and it was literally emergency city council
Restaurant
meeting,
help.
when at the beginning of the pandemic they didn't have enough workers at the airport. The TSA didn't have enough. There's a shortage of workers, so there's an emergency meeting to
Mhm.
pay the salaries of the workers so that the planes can still fly. Like,
Okay,
that's
let's
what's an
let's finish this
emergency to
up.
San
So,
Jose.
I'll say it one more time. I'm sorry. What was the last thing you said? Say it one more time. Sorry. And then we got to close out because I have another meeting with
To
Allery. But go
them, it's
ahead.
an emergency if cars can't drive and
Right.
planes can't fly.
Right.
The
Exactly.
climate is not an emergency
Mhm.
to the city council,
Right.
unfortunately.
Right.
Needs to be put at that priority.
Thank you.
There is a
Right.
climate action plan. There is written down a plan. It's not
Right.
bad. We have to do it. This is
Right.
in general our problem in San Jose. We write plans and then ignore them. And then our second major problem is we don't fund anything at an adequate level because we think that taxing corporations is somehow going to chase them away, which is ridiculous because the bigger cities or the other large cities in the region are taxing corporations at much higher levels. Oakland and San Francisco don't have this hang up. They say, hey, that's where the money is. I'm going to tax them, knowing they're not going anywhere. This is where the people are. This is where this is where they
Well,
have
actually, they need to go away. The corporations are really part of the problem. And, we need to be very hyper local and have we're supposed to have transformational change is what the science says. And now we have 4 to 5 years, supporting businesses is not like Kat says, what are we gonna do to save the people? That's the right, right, that is saving the people. And we don't need businesses, to save the people. We need food, clothing, and shelter. We need basic needs, right? That's what we need, right? And that's what you brought up too, is food, is to grow food locally. You said it, right?
Yeah, that's actually one thing that the city has no plan whatsoever. There's even less awareness of. The sustainable transportation and renewable energy, there is an awareness of that in the city administration. Local food production and gardens, I don't see or hear anything about that,
Right,
as
nothing.
if
The
as if
Valerie saying,
the food system that we have is completely fine. It's not completely fine. The food system itself is producing huge amount of greenhouse gas emissions from
exactly,
both like the way that it's farmed with fertilizers and then it's transported huge distances.
right.
And it's better for you to eat local organic food. It's good for especially for children to learn how to garden at a young
Right,
age and be
right.
connected to nature. We can
Mhm,
very easily have small pieces of land. You start small, like everything else. You have
mhm,
a few community gardens. We should have, just like we have parks in every neighborhood of the city, community gardens in every neighborhood of the city. And those community gardens can get bigger and bigger over time until we're producing most or all of our food. That's
mhm,
totally doable thing. This is not a fantasy at all. I mean, there are people who in their own backyard grow all their food and
mhm,
exchange their food to other
mhm,
people.
mhm,
This is reality.
mhm, mhm,
It's not something that we have to imagine. We can do it. We can build it. For
okay,
community
good.
gardens, that's
Mhm,
simple. It just means designating a piece of land
right.
and starting to grow food on it. And I know that the residents of San Jose, there's a high demand for this. People
Okay.
want to have access to a space where they can grow food and they don't.
Mhm. Good,
They,
yeah. And somebody was talking, what somebody said was so beautiful. This woman was talking today, and I have to close. I have to go talk to Ellery, but I love talking to you. It was beautiful. Too bad we can't talk more. But we can do it again, which is good. But I'm gonna get this done and you did a great job, Andrew. Thank you.
thank
And
you.
I just want to say the last thing. This woman was saying, I live in a 250-story house, building, some high rise. She says, but I go to my farmer's market and I can my food. So like if we took that step, you see, of getting bulk food from the farmers markets, which we can do, and then canning it, that step is part of the system of unwinding this, the waste free and plastic free, so we don't buy jars of tomato sauce. We make our own, and we use our own jars, and my kombucha is in my own jar, and I reuse it. I'm not buying stuff. We've got to stop buying. And you see the consumerism and capitalism. And I thought that she said that's one part of it, is that I can go to a farmer's market and start canning. So if we all did that, even, would be a step in the right direction. Not that everybody can grow food, but she can take a bunch of food and can it, or preserve it in some way that, it reduces our waste stream. That's it. So I've got to go, sweetheart. All right, good. You
Yeah.
see what I'm
In
saying?
in
That
in
was a good
general, I
point.
would say all of these things
Right,
gotta start small. And
right.
that's where
Okay.
that's the step that the city doesn't want to take that first step.
Okay,
You know,
say your credentials of who you are, and then we'll end it. I'm Andrew Boone. Say who you are, how old you are, everything about you. Put your
I'm
background is,
Andrew
and I
Boone.
walk, I bike. Go ahead.
Well, I founded an organization called I Walk, I Bike, I Vote in 2014 to push candidates for the city council. Well, just to ask candidates for the city council how they would improve conditions for walking and biking. I realized since then, skating is something we didn't have in mind, and roller skating and scootering and all these, what the city now calls micro mobility devices, all of
Mhm.
the micro mobility devices, that's my big
All right,
passion.
good. Okay,
That's
that's
what I
great. That's
want
who
to
you are.
support.
And that's great. And then you also have a master's in mechanical engineering. Is that your background? Master's?
Mhm.
And a bachelor's, is that what your bachelor's is too?
They both are. Well,
Oh, that's
my
beautiful.
master's degree is called Sustainable Energy Engineering. I studied renewable energy power plants in my
Oh, that's
graduate degree.
beautiful. Oh, okay, great. And where'd you go?
Stockholm, Sweden.
Oh, oh my God, you are amazing.
There weren't
All
there
right,
weren't
good.
a lot of places in the United States, actually zero, where you could get a degree in sustainable energy engineering.
Oh, and you're 40 years old. How old are you now? 41? What
Hey,
are you?
that's personal
Let's keep
information.
that personal. Okay, fine, whatever. You're about 40. All right, we love you.
I'm bald. How about that?
You're gorgeous. All right, we love you. You're beautiful. All right, sweetie, love you. You take care.
Love you
Thanks for being
too.
here. Okay, thanks,
Sure,
sweetheart.
Tessa.
Bye. All right, you
Bye.
take care. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, and